Hello, everyone. Welcome to College Confident Parents. My name is Sonja Montiel. I am the founder of College Confidence, and I am so thrilled to have Danielle Winton with us with Memory Strategies. And what really captivated me, Danielle, is, my students. So I work with high schoolers and college students, and I even know any parent or educator that has any age student in the home, we've got exams creeping up. We've got APs, we've got possibly SAT, ACT, final exams, and we got projects. And what I just love about what you do is you're not just test prep, you're not just let's get through the strategies of the content, you're about something else. So I would love for you to thank you so much first for joining us.
Sure.
What is Memory Strategies?
Yeah, memory strategies is more than just memory. It's kind of an interesting name. It encompasses a lot more. It started off as just pure, how do I memorize stuff for those tests? But I started kind of stepping back and looking at the bigger picture and thinking, okay, how do I look at students or professionals who need to do a test, but how do I look at them as a whole and how do I make that process easier? So it started off as just memory, but it has kind of grown into focus, motivation, learning for understanding, and just strategies to help with the process from beginning to end, as opposed to just the test.
Yeah, and if you could just summarize, like, where have you been to come to this point where you did develop this program?
Yeah. So my start's kind of funny and weird and different. So I started off, I got my business degree and I started teaching English as a second language. So I lived in Taiwan for a couple of years. I've been in those schools where international students come 5 hours a day or more just to study a language in the hopes of going to college or getting a job in an English-speaking country. And so I saw my students struggle and I thought, as a teacher, how can I help? And I was kind of fascinated with this like memory world because I had heard, like I'd seen TV shows and books and stuff where there are these memory champions and what they can do is amazing. And what I learned is that memory is a teachable skill, which is something I didn't know. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to try to work on my own memory. And after studying these techniques and these strategies, I was able to memorize a deck of 52 cards in order. So I went through one by one, and it took me about 30 minutes to go through and memorize 52 cards. I gave it to my brother, and I was able to recite all 52 in order without any mistakes. And I thought, okay, I was not born with a great memory. I'm just like everyone else. I forget my car keys. I don't know where my purse is. So it's a skill. It's a very specific skill. So then I thought, okay, it's not very useful to memorize cards. How can I translate this into a foreign language? How can I translate this into any other kind of test or certification or license that someone needs? And so that's kind of how it grew. So I thought, if I can teach myself, I can teach my students. And I did. And I took a little bit of extra class time to show them how to learn, how to study, how to remember, and their test scores jumped by 300%. So they were able to, kind of cram more information in there to get the grades that they needed, because a lot of our students were failing because the standards were just so high. So, and then that's when it was kind of like, aha, help more people, start a business. Who else can I help? And so then it's kind of grown into my own thing where I can help people with workshops, I can help people with one-on-one, or I can help companies. So I kind of have like three things going. Well, so that's how it started.
Well, I'm telling you, I forget about the students. It's like, help us adults, help me find my keys and 51 other things. And yeah. I think you've really hit, you've hit something, a eureka moment. And just you discovering that is amazing. Because in my experience, when I help with students, it's really an emotional response when they even think of tests. And they only rely on what they know, what they've learned. And, there's so many studies about the brain being like the untapped universe. So we have our students hitting this very, very narrow wall that's not working. And they don't know how to walk around it. They just keep on hitting it, thinking that they can chisel through it. Can you share what are the top barriers in like recalling information? Or the emotional part, like how is that intertwined and why is it stopping us from making this easier for us?
Yeah. And so I totally understand what you're saying. I experienced this myself as a student, and then I've also seen it as a teacher, seeing it in my own students, where you only do what you know how to do, and if no one tells you how are you supposed to change? And so a lot of us, and this is one thing I talk a lot about, is how do you study and why do you study that way? Who told you? Where did you learn? How did you discover it? Is it working? We go through this conversation and most people are like, well, I read, highlight, and I don't understand what's going on in the textbook. And that's common because there's no like, here's how to study class. There's really not a class like that. Or if there is, that it's just hard to find, or maybe a private school or something. So that's the big thing, is like, I walk through how to study. And you were also asking about like some other barriers. I've got 3 for you. The first one is allowing enough time to prepare. And sorry, there's a lawnmower outside. If you hear some rumbling, it's not my tummy. Allow enough time to prepare. A lot of times, like, you've got your friends, you've got your family, you've got your classes, you've got your extracurricular, and oh yeah, the ACT or whatever test you have to take. And it's just like another thing added to your plate. And so people maybe only give themselves a couple weeks or a month or something to prepare, when really, when you start to realize the value of sort of these bigger tests, like saving thousands of dollars for a few credit hours or for scholarships or grants, treating it as a mini full-time job for a season of your life. And so being more prepared is going to increase your confidence, right? So that's number 1, allowing enough time to prepare. Number 2, practice tests and simulating as much as possible of what the real experience is going to be like. So just like a student hasn't been through this process before, and it's scary and it's weird and it's terrifying, and you have all these questions, and it can be really stressful because you don't know how to handle those things. As an adults, we have 30 more years experience, than them. And so what I would say, simulate as much as possible the testing conditions, the time limits, the quietness of the room, right? Don't just like, oh, I'm gonna, like, while I'm on my phone and eating, look at this paper. Simulate the experience, because that, again, that's going to build that confidence. And so then the third thing is studying the correct way, which is what I'm all about. So the difference between passive learning and active learning, that's my whole mission: how to make boring information interesting and enjoying that journey and that process.
That is awesome. So time, simulate, we say like mock exams a lot in the college admissions world, and the strategy. And I know now families are like, oh, this is why Sonja has Danielle with us, because I love that you question the why first. Where did you even get all this stuff? Why is that wall of studying even built? Who built it for you? And I think that awareness is huge, because it gives the permission for students to break it down and rebuild. And then with your 3 barriers to kind of, and I love the pace. It's not like hurry up and do this, but it is this gradual, slower pace. And you said, yeah, a little bit of investment, but think about that long-term reward in cost savings and time savings and quality of life, right? So thank you so much for doing that, breaking down why do we do it. I have to pinpoint at the parents a little bit, guys, because so many times the parents will say the parents were the teachers and said, well, highlighting worked for me, so that's what you should do. And I want to just also maybe challenge the parents that sometimes we're not the best. We are not the experts of everything, and we need someone like Danielle to help us a bit, right?
Well, and that's, again, when I started this business, I thought, I need to go read what works. Let me do some research on education. So I went to a bunch of peer-reviewed journal articles and other authors who spend their lives studying and learn from them. So I've got psychological science, biofeedback, memory, brain and cognition, just to name a few. So I'm out there reading what experiments were done, what research was done, what works, what doesn't, and why, and taking it back and putting it in my own curriculum to show people what works and what doesn't. And there is, some flexibility with personality, and, what works well for one person might not always work the best for another person, but I give options,
It's amazing. All right. So on the other side, is there, can we come away with something? I'm already coming away with so much, which is hope and optimism that we can rebuild the memory strength of our brains. But are there any top tips to help that students can kind of take home, or parents might be able to understand as they are preparing for the testing season?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is, it can seem so terrifying and scary. It's just like this big monster and like a big weight, and like, I just want all the parents and the students to know, like, it's going to be okay. Like, it's going to be something that you walk through. Like, this is part of life. You're going to get through this. There's not quite as much pressure as we put on ourselves sometimes, and we can make something bigger in our mind. So that's the first thing, is like, take hope that it's going to be okay. And the second thing is, one thing that really helps is working backwards, right? So like, whatever the test day is, think about what your schedule looks like and work backwards. And the more important thing, include your teen in that process. If it is one thing to be a guide and to walk through the forest on the trail and the teen is falling behind you just looking at your back, it's another thing to lead from behind and say, okay, here's the map. Where are you going? How are you going to get there? They're going to learn way faster. They're going to learn way more. It's going to stay with them. They're going to make mistakes and get off the trail, but that's why you're there, to kind of help them, once they have that aha, I'm off the trail, get them back on track. So when you're planning that time to study, ask them why. Don't tell them why, ask them why, let them figure it out. So that process is huge in learning and understanding and valuing what they're doing, because if they're just doing it because you told them to, they're not going to care nearly as much. So walk them through that process. Let them discover these things, if that makes sense.
Oh, no, for sure. Yep.
So, and then there's one more thing. I just took some notes. When it comes to preparing for these tests, like, only focus on the parts that you need to focus on. You do not need to read that entire ACT book, right? Because you're going to be wasting your time. Figure out what section of the test, or whatever class it is, whatever test it is, whatever subject, the areas that need the most work, and focus on those, right? Time well spent. Don't be so overwhelmed with having to conquer the entire thing. Be smart about it, right?
For sure. Yeah. And that's a strategy. And again, breaking down that notion of more is best. The more I work or the more I read, somehow that's better. And you've just kind of broken that wall down too, which I so appreciate. One thing that was absolutely attractive to me was you used the word joy when we spoke before this recording. And I was celebrating inside, because, no student has ever, well, okay, maybe there's some, I don't want to generalize. The majority of students do not use the word joy when it comes to testing season. Right. It is automatic. It's like just replaced with anxiety. You said the burden, the weight of things. Can you talk more about how joy fits in all of this?
Yeah. So when people are internally motivated to do something, and when they find joy in the act of doing something, they're going to be more successful than someone who just has a deadline in mind. So I was listening to this really cool podcast about, it was like weight loss and like fitness and health. And they were saying, you've got a guy who enjoys walking, then you have a guy who enjoys just completing the task or the goal. Who are you going to put your money on? The person that enjoys walking, they're going to walk far beyond that deadline. They're going to enjoy the process as they're doing it, and it's not going to be a heavy weight to them. So that's the same thing with studying, learning, memorizing, getting into something you've never done before. If you can learn to enjoy that process, that's where you're going to have a lot more success in life in general. And so one thing that I do in my world is super fun. I've dealt with, kids in 4th grade, 6th grade, the transition from high school to college, adults. And what I get to do is I get to say, what do you like? What are you interested in? You like basketball? You like anime? You like cooking? And I take that information and I apply it to math, science, health, biology, whatever subject you're studying. So I have a really great job, because I get to take what's already in your brain, what you already love. I get to take information that's new to you, that you've never seen, that's boring and hard and difficult. I connect the two, and all of a sudden there's like bridges to new things in life, and doorways open, and there's like, oh, there's no more burden anymore. So that's what I do, is I help you enjoy the process, and I show you how to enjoy the process, not just for one thing, but for anything that comes your way, because there's always going to be hard, new, weird things that come your way. So I'm teaching lifelong skills, and it's a great thing to be part of.
I so love it because, you know, you're celebrating the brain that's like, oh yeah, I know this and I like this. So that part of the brain, wherever it's at, like, ooh, we like this, right? And whatever that scary thing is, or the block is that, so those synapses are just celebrating, because to me, the word is, it's just becomes relevant. Like a lot of students, you know, will say, why is this even relevant to my life? Am I just going to memorize just for this one test? How is that relevant to the rest of my life? And of course, there's just no motivation or inspiration there. And I love how you say the curiosity of it. Like for me, you've just planted a seed of how much can my own brain remember? Like I'm kind of curious about it for myself.
Yeah.
Am I limiting myself? Like what if there's these untapped resources in my brain?
Yeah.
I'm working with adults, so maybe I'm gonna take some of your workshops as well. Because gosh, how much can I spread, you know, in terms of utilizing my brain more? So I'm really excited because you have this amazing offer for our families. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, well, there's kind of two things. So 4 apparently. So number 1 is, I do memory workshops. It's one of my most successful things that I've been able to offer people. I think, maybe 1,000 people have done it. And the average test score increase. So what happens is it's a hands-on interactive 90-minute online workshop. I give you a test before, I give you a test after. And in the middle, you learn these techniques, how to study, how to learn, myths about the whole process. And people improve their test scores by double, average, sometimes triple, in 90 minutes. So all of a sudden you have this confidence boost of, yeah, I can do this. So it's a really valuable 90 minutes. And you walk away with a lifelong skill, which is great, a few skills. So that's going to take place, let's see, 7 p.m. Central on March 30th, which would be 5 p.m. Pacific time. And there's also a promo code. So it's normally $99, but you get $66 off. So with Prep 2021, it'll be really cheap for you. So there's no reason to not come. And you can bring as many people as you want on your computer. So if you've got 2 kids, sit them in front of the computer together, learn as a family. Everyone walks away with something. This isn't just ACT or SAT. This is, how do I learn? How do I study? How do I remember? Study, learn, remember. That's my spiel. And then the second thing that I have is individual tutoring. So if you're needing a little bit more help, a little bit more like, here is my, you know, people will hand me, here is my book or my study guide or my, you know, my practice exam help. I will sit and open that with you, even if I've never seen it before. I'm going to actually help people with export law and international policy. And like, I've never seen it before, but it doesn't scare me because I know that whatever unknown information is out there, I can figure a way to put it in my brain.
Awesome.
That's how powerful it is.
Oh, the courage.
So it's only, and again, it's because I did the cards. It's like, it's such a confidence builder. It really helps. So, so yeah, the one-on-one tutoring, if you just want to email me, we can work out, you know, what you need. There's always a consultation. We can figure out where you're going, what your goals are, and we'll get you there.
How could you, I mean, leaving a conversation like this, I'm actually like, I've got an adrenaline rush. I'm excited. And usually, you know, like, you know, memory strategies. I mean, there is an excitement to that. I so appreciate you instilling that and reminding all of us that this can be something joyful. This workshop, the 90-minute workshop, I think what a great way to taste test it. To be like, I don't know, you know, can I, needs 90 minutes, your whole family, friends, maybe it's a hangout, right?
There you go.
To experience it together. What a deal that you're giving too. So I appreciate your generosity in that. Sure, yeah. So everyone, we're going to have all the links. I'm going to have links, posts and things on how to find and reach Danielle. We have the promo that's going to go out as well. You'll probably click below in the post. Is there any other words of wisdom before we end this conversation? I don't want it to end.
Yeah, you can do it. I mean, you're so capable of doing what you didn't expect. And so when you challenge yourself, you're so rewarded from that. So you got this.
Got this. We got this. Thank you so much, Danielle. I appreciate you spending time with us.
Of course. Thank you for having me.